All right, so I'm here with the Eve 6 guy. Oh my God, we made it happen.
I know.
We did it. Max, it's so good to see you.
You too.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm so excited. Finally made this happen. I feel like I've been wanting to do this since 2020 probably. So I'm glad to have you in person.
Thanks so much.
So let's just start with how was your morning?
Kind of a crazy morning. I've been doing some writing for this magazine called Input. It's a tech culture magazine, which is pretty funny if you know me because I'm a total Luddite, but I have an advice column with them.
Oh, yeah, I've read it.
And the way that advice column came about was pretty strange because I'm assuming you know who John Hinckley is. If your listeners don't, he's the guy who shot Ronald Reagan and Ronald Reagan's press secretary when he was 25 years old, went away, was institutionalized until like a week ago or so. He did a tweet like, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, where he's a singer-songwriter too. Sorry, there's a lot here. Where he listed some of the artists he was listening to, and one of them was Eve 6.
Yes.
Among a few others, Car Seat Headrest, this, I forget, there was a bunch of them. So when that happened, I didn't yet have this column at Input, but the editor there reached out to me and said, I'll commission you to interview Hinckley. And I tried to sort of reach out, but we learned that prescripts or the mandates of his court thing were that he couldn't do any press, or I don't even think he could follow people back on Twitter. But that's what got myself and the editor at Input talking, and then the column came out of those conversations.
Which just came out today, right?
Yeah, so and this, what came out today isn't part of my column, but it is for the same magazine, Input, and it's an interview with John Hinckley, and it's the most substantial interview with John Hinckley since the 80s. He's done a few other things. He did like a brief, the New York Times reached out to him recently because he had a couple shows were canceled of his because
he was going to try to play some shows and go on the Redemption Tour.
The Redemption Tour, yeah. And tour is probably too large a term for it. That is what he was calling it, though. But it was like 3 or 4 shows. All of the venues ended up backing out. So, yeah, he did a couple brief kind of like the New York Times called him for comment type of thing. He hasn't done an interview that's really, very long or deep since the 80s. And so, yeah, we got this interview and it happened and it came out today. So I was a little nervous about it last night.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
were you nervous in the sense that you were afraid of what people were going to say about you doing it, or?
Yeah, he's a very controversial figure for obvious reasons. I think he's interesting. He's interesting to me, I guess partly for those reasons, but also because he's an artist, he's a singer-songwriter. His songs, in my opinion, are really good. And yeah, I think I was just, it was sort of part nervousness, part just that anticipatory thing, like how's this going to get, part excitement, honestly.
Yeah.
I've never interviewed anyone before, and the fact that my first interview was with John Hinckley, it's all very very surreal.
It's nuts.
But yeah.
Well, that you did such a great job.
Thank you.
You asked really good questions, and it was clear that he really just wanted to focus on the music because you kind of you tried to ask him about the past, and he was very adamant that he did not want to talk about that. And I think he even said something where he was like, I have things to do, so if we can speed this up. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, he clammed up real quick.
Yeah.
And it was my editor that asked those questions. Actually, I made sure not to.
Okay, so you were just asking the music based.
Kind of just the music questions. And the thing I was most curious about, like you said, he was calling this canceled tour the Redemption Tour. And, what does redemption mean to him or to myself? Do you have to be perceived as redeemed to be redeemed, or is it an inward thing, And the kind of Protestantism of our culture, I think, would say that you have to, the public has to agree that you've been redeemed for you to be redeemed, or at least that's how people seem to take it.
Yep.
I don't think I agree with that, and I'm also not saying that Hinckley is redeemed, but I do think it's an interesting question. He has spent the last 40 years or however long it's been doing intensive therapy, getting medicated for a host of diagnoses. And the people who are getting mad about it on Twitter, I mean, are a lot of the same people who say, gun violence is just a mental health thing. Mm-hmm. And this is someone who had mental health problems, went away for it, is now has just gotten his freedom, and he's being stigmatized for it. It's like, again, I say this, the background of all of this is I understand people who are angry about, Hinckley being profiled. I do get it. But at the same time, I think, I don't know, people can be a little bit disingenuous in their critiques,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like, should we all be held accountable for things that we've done 10, 15 years ago? I mean, something that you brought up in the interview, which you and I have in common, is like our sobriety and our recovery. And you have like 16 years, I have like 6.5 years, and I'm just like, the things that I did back then, like, I'm a thief.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a liar. I did some awful things to people.
Yeah.
But the only difference in a way is like, when you get the opportunity to own it before people can find out about it, for some reason that makes it different to other people, because it's like you admitting it first before they can get the dirt on you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, but that totally is the question. It's like, some of the people that you or I harmed in our drinking may have forgiven us. Maybe we were able to make amends to them. Maybe some we didn't, and they still think that we're assholes.
Mm-hmm.
I also know that I don't live like that anymore.
Yep.
I no longer use drugs or alcohol, and I kind of like have a drastically different way of living today. I mean, I feel like if redemption is an inward job, then I'm redeemed.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, then I'm not. And the people who are still, because there's people who probably still think I'm a dick.
Yeah, I'm sure. But that has nothing to do with you in a way. It's like, that's on them.
Yeah.
And I think that it was very clear in the interview that he does feel redeemed on the inside, because he was like, I'm just all about moving forward at this point, and I just want to focus on my art and my music. So he seems like he's very, like, I don't know if at peace would be the word, but just he knows it's time to move on. He's paid his penance. I mean, being in a mental institution for 35 years, like, I went to a psych ward for 3 days. Like, I like 5150'd myself when I first got sober, just so they would hold me, so I physically couldn't go pick up heroin. Yeah. And it was terrifying being in there. It was gnarly, so I can only imagine.
I can only imagine. I've never been in a psych ward. My brother has. I've like, and that's a long time. There are contradictions to what he says that, part of me wishes that he would address it more than he is, because the fact that he doesn't want to touch it at all makes it really easy for people to kind of assume the worst about him, and it does play as a little narcissistic, I think, which I think is something. I think he's got the narcissism.
Oh yeah, I'm
for sure. Once I got him on the phone, and again, I didn't think it was going to happen. It was like all of this weird, crazy back and forth stuff, but like just hearing his voice and hearing him speak, I was like, oh, this is a whole human being who's flawed, made tons of mistakes, definitely does not have it all together, is probably trying his best, though. Mm-hmm. You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's such an insane life to live, and I do feel like everybody deserves a second chance, though. At the end of the day, you know, I really do feel like that.
I do
whether
too.
people think that's right or wrong, and it's essentially because I have lived through that, and you know, I feel like when you do 12-step programs and stuff like that, like you're surrounded by people who have murdered other people.
Yep.
You're surrounded by all types of different people, but I feel the most seen in those groups of people.
Yeah.
I feel the most, like, you know, like the least judged, the most understood. I'm like, I'm at home with these, you know, insane other people, you know?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. It reminded me, talking to him reminded me of conversations that you'd have outside of those, you know, gatherings.
Yeah. So I do want to say that when your Twitter started going off in 2020, we're all in the pandemic, and I start getting these like text messages. Like my friend Ryan hits me up and he's like, dude, have you been going on the Eve 6 Instagram? And I'm like, what? So I like go on there, and I mean, it's like some of the funniest shit I've ever read in my whole life. And I swear to God, I know this sounds like nuts, but your Instagram or your Twitter really kept me like going in a lot of ways. And it was like just like a nice comic relief. So like, what was it that where you were just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna say everything that's going through my mind and just put it all out there?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you were entertained by it. It does feel good that, you know, and that's the goal, to, you know, have people get a kick out of it as opposed to have it drive them crazy, which is also the effect it has on some. But and I understand that too.
But at least it's hitting something within them.
Yeah. I think it came about partly through conversations that I was having with a friend of mine who, this is actually someone that I met on Twitter around the time of my mom's passing in 2019. And this person had also just lost someone close to them. And we just kind of had this sort of deep kind of friendship started, you know? And they thought that the way that I talked about my band when I did was very amusing, you know? And it just sort of got me thinking maybe along those lines a little bit. And I remember waking up one morning and it just occurred to me. It's like this had never occurred to me before, which is weird, but like that I was a virgin when I wrote the Heart in a Blender song, at least the first, because it was written in a few different iterations, you know? So like I lost my virginity at 18. I wrote that song, most of that song, when I was 17 years old. And so that occurred to me. I thought, wow, that's really funny, you know, that this is true.
Yeah. I mean, that's so young to write that song.
Yeah.
And it was also like, it was because you were heartbroken, right? You had a girlfriend that cheated on you at that time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, but lyrically, I think it's a fucking great song. Like, I will never forget the first time I heard that song, and I was hooked, and I would hear it on the radio all the time. It crossed over into top 40. I mean, it's a huge anthemic song.
Yeah, totally.
We still play it all the time.
No, totally. Like, and yeah, it's funny because we just did a tour and we did one of those like sound check party things at the shows where like people could come and see the sound check and ask questions and stuff. And a few people would ask, like, you know, do you hate your own music? Like, I follow you on Twitter, and it seems like you're always taking the piss out of yourself. And, like, no, I don't. I think I appraise it pretty holistically, you know?
Well, you're just, like, being sarcastic, and it's, like, I mean, it's funny because you were 17. So you're worlds away from when that happened.
Completely.
That's what people know you by.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, which is a strange thing. That's a strange thing. Yeah, I'm not, you know, I'm still proud of, that song and other Eve 6 songs. I also, I think, view them objectively and within a certain context. So like, I can also appreciate the fact that, there are lyrics in them that are pretty funny, which are probably, that weren't intended to be funny, but they're funny to me now. But that's probably also a lot of the reason why that song in particular reacted the way it did. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff there to sort of look at. I love thinking about me.
Well, you're so I feel like you're so fearless in your approach to Twitter in a way that I feel like I don't know if I could ever be, like you just lay it all out there. It's almost like I've got nothing to lose type of attitude.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because the thought attendant to, I don't think I was thinking about this when I pushed that first tweet out that, I didn't know that it would go viral or anything like that. But
so that's the I think we're going to be huge again. Was that the first tweet?
No, you know what? I'm pretty sure we're going to be huge again. No, I think that came after.
Okay.
Do you remember the first tweet? No, it didn't. You're right. I'm pretty sure we're going to be huge again. I did before.
Okay.
The other one, which makes it even funnier because we didn't have a lot of followers or anything. This was yeah.
I know your Twitter exploded.
Yeah.
It's been insane. And then you have people like Marianne Williamson. What did she call you?
Miracle Max.
Miracle Max.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty surreal. The internet is a surreal place.
It is. Who's the biggest trip out that has corresponded with you on Twitter or retweeted you?
Oh man. The Marianne Williamson thing is very trippy because she was a big part of my early sobriety. Mm-hmm. I would go every Wednesday night. I always forget the name of the theater, but it's on La Brea and Melrose. And I would go alone because all my friends thought I was insane, for doing this book called The Course in Miracles, which she didn't write, but she does kind of source from it. And I think a lot of her spiritual psychology thing, I know a lot of it comes from that book. And a sponsor of mine got me into that book, and I got way into that book. And there's a lot of language in that book that's pretty polarizing. And so, yeah, I didn't have again, my friends thought I was crazy for getting into this stuff, but it really resonated with me. And I would go.
Well, it's very in line with, if you're in recovery,
yeah.
I think it's right up the alley, My
I think
mom
so, too.
is super into it. She's super into the Course in Love or something like that. There's one that came after the Course in Miracles.
Is that, did Marianne Williamson write that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Course in Miracles was written by this woman named Helen something. She was a professor of medical psychology at Columbia.
Okay.
An atheist, apparently a very unpleasant person to be around. The story goes, sort of took it down as if it was being dictated to her. Never sought any limelight stuff or anything. Never hawked it. Nothing, and I'm pretty sure all of the profits from it went back into I don't know, course affiliated stuff to get it out to people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that contradiction about her, the woman who wrote this thing.
Yeah.
So I would go listen to Marianne speak every Wednesday night for an hour and a half. And then I forget what our first Twitter interaction was. I think I was kind of flirting with her on Twitter, and then she kind of was playing along a little bit. But then when I wrote that first column, I sent it to her, and she read it, and she was like, "This is really good," And I sent her the second one, and she was like, "This is better." And we talked about it and stuff, and that was crazy.
Yeah.
Other crazy ones. I mean, Patton Oswalt and I have had this ongoing
feud
thing.
Yeah.
Ongoing feud for 6 or 8 months or something now. Kyle MacLachlan, who played Agent Cooper in Twin Peaks.
Oh, whoa.
That one was crazy.
Yeah.
I did a tweet. I didn't even tag him. I just said, I once was Agent Cooper, now I'm Bob. And he quote tweeted that and said, it's a journey. That was a crazy one. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing stand-up comedy?
No, I don't have that thing. I mean, like, I think like Twitter's very different, being able to like just forge a little thing for maximum impact. I'm good at that.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedy is like a different thing, I think. I don't have a desire to do that. I respect it when people do it well.
I could see you being like a Mitch Hedberg type. You know what I mean?
I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
We took out a stand-up comedian on this tour we just did.
Oh, wow. Who'd you take out?
A guy named Jake Flores.
Okay.
Who's a pretty polarizing comedian. He's a communist. And yeah, it was fun. The thing I said on stage to sort of explain the aesthetic of the show to our audience, most of whom was pretty confused by the lineup, was like, it came time to book a tour. COVID seems like, enough people are pretending that it's done that I guess we will too. Mm-hmm. And we had a conversation with our booking agent wherein they said, here's what you guys should do. Take out another 90s band. People really love that. They love the package thing.
Yep.
It makes sense to them. You'll move more tickets. Let's do some business. And we said, okay, noted. What if instead we take out a self-described gay ska band and a communist comedian? And the crowd, even the crowd that I could tell was a little bit hostile before that explanation, was kind of like, okay, all right, I see what they're doing here, But yeah, I think it was a pretty confusing bill for some of the audience, but most of them ended up being down to come along for the ride. And we've also made some new fans in the last year and a half who are younger and kind of like, politically awake and stuff like that. So there's this, I don't know, there are these different kind of cross sections of the audience now, which is cool, I think.
Oh, totally. Yeah. People who've like never maybe seen you live before and things
Absolutely.
like that,
And I think we've probably lost some fans too. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I am obsessed with George Carlin. I just watched the double documentary. This podcast is like in honor of him. And, I was watching, just talk about someone who had such a crazy trajectory.
Yeah.
And it was almost just like through every era of him, like when he was like clean cut,
yep.
and then he was like counterculture, and then he kind of like lost himself for a bit and then realized he just wanted to talk about the things that really mattered to him.
Yep.
It was like there's people that stuck with him,
mm-hmm.
and then there's people that didn't go along for the ride.
Absolutely.
But it's
he
like,
took a hit
totally
to follow his true north.
Yep.
He could have done that act, the clean cut thing,
mm-hmm.
forever, and he ended up, the choices that he made ended up making him even more successful than he ever was, but it was a risk, and he did make sacrifices for that at first. Yeah, crazy career he had. I haven't seen the movie, but I listened to an analysis of it by, one of them was Jake Flores and a couple other like leftist podcasters, and yeah, it was fascinating to me.
Yeah, you would so love it. It's like a two-parter. And, and he struggled with cocaine for a long time. He was married to an alcoholic who then later got sober. He had like a really wild ride. But I think in the same way as you, where people don't understand, like, are you making fun of your band? Like, aren't you whatever? It was like, he got really dark, like in the end, where it's like some people didn't want to go that mm-hmm. dark. But like who he truly was on the inside was like this person who really wanted to be optimistic and who was super sweet and who really, did in a way have like faith in humanity, but it
had
was
love
just
in
like,
his heart. I think in order to be funny, not just funny in the way George Carlin was, you need that. Mm-hmm. You can kind of tell when that's missing from a comic.
Yes.
And I don't know. I guess it works on some people.
Yeah.
Because it works on a lot of people, frankly. But yeah, having that background of love thing going on is crucial, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also just love, and I feel like you have this in common, where it's like the love of like the English language. Like I feel like you're so like, I had to like look up a word that you used in one of your one of your articles, you know? I think it was like anachromatically. Is that
Oh, anthropomorphized?
something like that?
Yeah.
I had to literally I
yeah,
had to
yeah,
Google
yeah.
it and be like, what the fuck does that even mean? But you know, it's like you have this, I feel like a really like a gift for like knowing how to express yourself.
Thank you.
Which like I think in turn, you know, them asking you to do this advice column was like, it's such a perfect fit.
Yeah, it's weird. It I think it kind of is. I'm really enjoying doing it. And yeah, I've always loved playing with words. I mean, that's what Eve 6 really, you know, was in the beginning. I didn't really have a conception of I didn't really understand melody. I wasn't, you know, a proficient musician in any way, but playing with words and sort of like phonetic sounds and stuff like that made up for that other stuff and, you know, made it work. So that, I guess the words have always been sort of the primary thing for me anyway. And
Yeah, well, in that interview that you did, John Hinckley,
yeah.
You said that it's more important to get the lyrics to fit the melody and to change, you know, switch out a word or whatever instead of like forcing it to fit or work.
Totally.
You know, and I do feel like that really does come across in your lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're very clean.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I'm happy to sacrifice a lyric that maybe looks or feels clever on paper, but when you put it to melody, it loses something. Yeah, it's music first, and that's how the transcendent thing happens, the dream thing happens, at least for me when I'm listening. Like, it's got to sound, it's got to feel right, you know? And I think sometimes people can get in their own way with trying to be too clever with lyrics.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly have too, centering myself in that.
It seems like today, and I've talked to Kevin Kenny about this, like our night show guy who's your friend. New stuff that's coming out, maybe with the younger generation, is like the lyrics are kind of like too on the nose, where it's like find a more creative way about saying like I'm depressed and I'm fucked up. It's like find another way, like tell a story, you know?
Yeah,
I feel like
also
we lost
think
storytelling.
Yeah,
you know,
I like it when writers play with abstraction to the point that, I don't know, often I'd rather not know what you're talking about if the words are doing something to my imagination. And Chris Collingwood, the singer of Fountains of Wayne, wrote an op-ed in the New York Times about this that I've sort of taken with me since I read it. And it's about the utility of confusion, like using confusion, not as a writer, not in a way where you just say whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's got to mean something to the person who's writing it. But, you know, I think about some of my favorite songs. I have no idea what they're about.
Right.
And if I did know, they'd lose something. It's similar to the way a dream, when it's explained, is no longer interesting, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. It makes me feel good that you say that, because I feel like for most songs that I truly love, like I don't really know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I also love how like there can be a really sad lyrically song, but the music's really happy.
Yeah.
And so it's like kind of a conflicting feeling, or you don't even know that it's a sad song because you're just like caught up in the happiness, you know?
Totally. I love that. And I always think of the New Pornographers song, speaking of us, like My Slow Descent into Alcoholism, which is like just the happiest, most melodic bop. But, you know, the lyric is brutal.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
It's so good.
And Morrissey obviously was master of that kind of thing too. Well, I guess he kind of used like macabre. He had a very dark sense of humor that he would use in pop songs, which worked.
So, okay, so, you know, Eve 6, you guys got signed. well, you were still in high school.
Yeah.
And, you're 16, 17, writing songs and don't really know what's going on. I mean, how did you guys even get discovered by a label?
Well, we were, we were playing backyard parties, like that type of thing, all ages venues, wherever would have us, basically. We started playing our sophomore year of high school. So there were a few like coffee shops and like all ages venues that we'd play at a lot. Cobalt Cafe was one, Eagles Coffee Pub in North Hollywood. There was a place called the Natural Fudge Company. I think it was on Melrose. I don't totally remember. And we did a show there, all ages venue. A woman came up to us afterwards and she said she did A&R for an independent label out of Orange County called Dr. Dream, and that she really liked our set. And we were like, oh, that's cool, And she invited us to come down and like meet the label and stuff like that. And we did, and they were like the label where guys from seminal Orange County punk bands went to die, basically.
Okay.
It was like they had Joe Wood from TSOL's new band.
Okay.
Steve Soto's new band, Cadillac Tramps, I think, from the Adolescents. There are a couple others like that. They had a band called The Grabbers who was really good. I think the president of the label was in The Grabbers.
Okay.
They offered us a deal. We were like, sure, So we signed a deal with this little punk label from Orange County. Started making a record with Steve Soto of the Adolescents, R.I.P., producing. We got through, I think, tracking drums, and the label had coordinated this interview for us to do with a syndicated show called Radio Asylum. So this woman named Jennifer Harold came. We did this interview with her. She recorded like 4 or 5 songs, full live band, and she was like, you guys are really good. Can I manage you? We said, sure. And she knew an A&R guy at RCA, sent him this live recording of ours that I'm sure was terrible, I'm sure, really bad. He heard something in it, flew out with another A&R guy, and we played a showcase for them that was, again, really bad. Like, our drummer dropped sticks. I remember being mortified after this, that, man, we just blew it. But they offered us a deal. They offered us a record deal, bought us out of the Dr. Dream deal, and we signed a deal with RCA our junior year of high school.
God.
Yeah,
that's
nuts.
insane.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if this is true or not, but it was like you guys kind of struggled being signed with RCA in the beginning, and they were just kind of like, these songs are not good enough. You guys need to keep writing. Da, da, da. So like, at what point did you wrote the Heart in a Blender song, and then did you like give that to them, and they were like, oh, this is gonna be it? Well,
so we did like another showcase thing, or basically just had a rehearsal where our A&R guy came out to hear what we'd had. And when they signed us, it was with the understanding that we would finish high school. We wouldn't go in to make a record right away. And I think they wanted to see if we would turn into something they could sell, basically. So he came out. This would have been, I guess, we would have been seniors in high school at this point. He came out. We played for him at Fortress Rehearsal Studios, which might even still be there on Highland. And he took us out to Musso and Frank's afterwards.
Yes.
And I'll never forget, like, he was just like, such a bummer. He was like, you don't have the songs. I don't know where you fit. I see you falling through the cracks. You don't sound like the radio right now, all of that shit, right? And he was like, I'll give you a little bit of money to get these songs off your chest, And they did. He gave us like a couple grand to record a couple songs. Our drummer, his dad is a famous record producer, our old drummer. A lot of people think we got the deal because of him. He wasn't in the band when we got the deal.
Okay.
So he came later.
Okay.
But he was a famous record producer, had a studio. So we didn't have to pay for a studio.
Oh, nice.
We hired this guy named Don Gilmore who had engineered some big records but had never produced a record that had done anything. But we liked the way a record that he produced that didn't do anything sounded. A band called the Cunninghams. We hired him. He flew down here, slept on his brother's sofa, and we recorded 3 or 4 songs with him. One of those songs was the Heart in a Blender song, which that A&R guy had heard in the rehearsal room and, said you're falling through the cracks or whatever. But granted, it was after Don had gotten to it. We'd cut out I don't know, 25% of the lyrics that were in there. It was like a really fucking long song.
Okay.
Don did some things to it that made it far better. One of them is the weird chord before the chorus.
Yes.
So yeah, and our guy came back, heard that, and was like, "Oh, okay, all right." I remember he said, "It sounds like you put the kitchen sink into this." And we were like, "I don't know what that means, but it sounds like you like it." So he gave us more money to finish the record, and we did. Yeah.
God, I don't know how you could hear that song and not know that it was going to be like a massive hit. It's like an instant.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was writing it, when I would just be like playing it in like the dining room at my parents' house, like my mom would always say, "Play that one again."
Yeah.
And my neighbors would come over and say, "Hey, play that Heart in a Blender one." Like they just hear it out the window,
Yeah. It's like catchy from the first time you hear it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's one of those songs, for whatever reason it's got that thing. Yeah.
Like those songs are just like magic, I feel like they come from the ether or something.
Yeah, they're weird little cosmic gifts that, some people can just willfully write a hit.
Yeah.
I obviously can't, or I would have written a bunch more. But I was handed that one, and
yeah, but Here's to the Night did well.
Yeah.
You've definitely had a lot of other songs that charted and, did pretty good.
No, totally.
It's just when you get a song that's a monster, it's a curse and a blessing.
Yeah, it's true.
Because you're always chasing that, and it's really hard. Like, I see it happen to so many bands.
Yeah.
It's like Portugal the Man, Feel It Still. How are you ever going to fucking top that song?
No, totally.
Can't.
It sets up an insane expectation that often is just impossible to meet for a host of reasons. I think part of it for us on our second record was we put out this standard tuning Duran Duran inspired pop rock record at the height of nu metal.
Yep. Yeah.
Testosterone rock,
Totally.
So it was just, yeah. And we had to play shows with all those bands. It was a nightmare.
Oh God.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you were always doing what you wanted to do musically?
No.
Okay.
But like at the same time, because of when my drinking started and started to become like a priority for me, if you had asked me what I wanted to do instead, I probably wouldn't have been able to give you a clear answer for that. So like, other personalities in the band that were like more assertive than me started to sort of take control, and I didn't know how to negotiate that. So I just fucking retreated,
I get that.
and did the whole, okay, well, I just don't care.
Yeah.
I affected that, even though it wasn't true,
I still do that.
I still do that too.
Yeah. So around what age would you say your drinking started to get really bad, or around like what time?
It progressed pretty fast for me because I didn't drink at all in high school.
Oh, you're one of those.
I'm one of those. And so I didn't start drinking until we were on tour. And when you're a band on tour, it's everywhere.
Yeah, every day.
Everywhere, every day. And you almost feel like you have an obligation, Not that sounds like I'm blaming it on something else. I'm not. From the second I, ingested alcohol, I just really loved the way it made me feel and resolved to feel that way as much as possible.
Yep.
So, But it didn't help or hurt that it was everywhere and I could get it whenever I wanted. And, you know, that was part of it. So by the end of the tour for our first record, we'd been out for like a year and a half, and like my drinking was worrying my band members and crew to the point where they talked to our manager and said, Max is a problem. Like he's got a problem, you know, and it's bad. You know, it was on that tour that I was, you know, lying on my back, throwing up in my sleep.
Oh no.
I was with like my ex-girlfriend who tried to wake me up and she couldn't wake me up. She managed to turn me over onto my side. But that's one of those things where like if she hadn't been there, I'd probably be dead, you know? So that was already happening on that first tour.
Oh my gosh.
So basically our manager did a thing that I've never heard of any other manager do, which is crazy. And he passed away a few years ago, but like I'll always respect him for it. He was like, you can either finish this run sober or I'm bringing you home. And I said, well, there's no way I'm fucking doing this sober. Like I literally can't do this sober. So like, there's your answer. And I think I knew I wouldn't be able to lie because this had sort of come from my band members to him. So we canceled, I think a European tour. We canceled like a bunch of stuff. I came home, was sober for like 10 days, then back. And yeah, I mean, it got problematic very quickly for me, and it got worse, predictably, as it continued. And I stopped in 2006. So I had a very short run of drinking.
Yeah. Because it started in what, like 97, 98?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ended in 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty lucky to, you know, only go that long. But,
Yeah.
But obviously it proves how progressive the disease is of alcoholism. I mean, I was like blackout drinker from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this is fucking awesome. I don't feel anything.
Same.
This is great.
I remember having that feeling the day after the first time I got drunk, the morning after throwing up in the sink, whatever hotel I was in, and thinking, I don't remember what happened last night, and thinking, this is living.
Yes.
Like, this is cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, finally I can breathe, you know?
Finally I can breathe. Finally I have, I have an out, you know? I have recourse. Like, as long as I have this substance, I can go anywhere in the world. I can do anything.
Yes, totally. Like nothing can touch me.
Nothing can touch me.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And in a way, I feel like it sort of helped me to get to where I am because I had such a fuck it attitude and I truly didn't care what anyone else like thought of me, or so I thought, you know. And then I was just able to like do things like go on the radio, like
that
just
served you.
Yeah, you know, and same for you too. Like being able to go out there and be like a crazy performer. And I also think that like we had one time where we had the best time in the whole world getting fucked up. And for the rest of our drinking or using careers, we're chasing that same one time like forever. Yeah. And we can never capture it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. It's insane.
Totally. Well, it's literally insane, isn't it?
Yeah. It fucking is. So you guys broke up in 2004 for a while. And then at what point were you like, you know what? I want to get the band back together and keep doing this?
We broke up, in around 2004. I got sober in 2006. I think it was in like, I'd probably had a year or so of sobriety when our old drummer was like, you know, we have a lot of fans still. Like we have this thing that we built that most people who sling guitars don't ever get. Let's do it, you know? And I, even at a year of sobriety, I was like, I don't think I can do this sober.
Totally.
You know, even a year in.
Yep.
And so, like, we talked a lot about that or whatever. Eventually, I was like, okay, let's try it, you know. And we did a show, and I didn't drink and I didn't die. Mm-hmm. And it was just started to kind of put some of those together. And I think that would have been in 2007.
Okay.
Our original guitar player was doing a band called Monsters Are Waiting that were starting to like do well and get like buzz and shit. So he was doing that. We had a friend of ours come in and play guitar for a couple years. But yeah, it took me a really long time to find my voice, not like my singing voice, but like creatively figure out who and what I was after getting sober. And there were a lot of just complicated interpersonal things with the band that I had to like figure out that I even got wrong in sobriety, that I overcompensated for, overcorrected for. I was still motivated by guilt sometimes, so I would like cede ground creatively when I shouldn't have, kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, but this all checks out for the journey that you go on when you get sober, because I feel like I'm still trying to figure out who the fuck I am.
Yeah.
And who am I on the radio? What do I want to contribute? What do I want to say?
Yeah.
And I can only imagine how difficult that is when you're just trying to figure that out in your life.
Yeah.
And then you're also trying to figure out what that looks like musically also,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I feel like the music that you guys have been making and putting out singles last year and this year are super interesting. It's you know, like
Thanks.
I like it, you know. It's completely different from what you used to do, but it's like, of course it is, you know. But it's almost like, I guess it kind of reminds me of like Lou Reed or like Iggy Pop, like kind of like in that vein, which I love.
Yep, same.
Are you just like, fuck it, let's just do whatever we want?
Yeah, we're basically treating our band as a side project, you know, which is like kind of interesting. I've become friends with Steve Albini from Twitter too.
Wow.
And
that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And
so he produced like Nirvana.
Yeah.
Who else?
Oh man. PJ Harvey.
Oh wow.
Bush.
Oh wow.
He has an endless list of credits as an engineer. Like, my mind is blanking right now, but the Pixies.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But he and Jake Flores, who I was talking about earlier, both are kind of this mindset that if you're a creative person, you should have a job, like a day job, basically, so that your art can remain uncompromised. Because under capitalism, if that's not the case, then you're going to follow the incentives, or the temptation to will often prove greater than your true north or whatever. We kind of look at, John and I, our guitar player and I, at the old catalog as the day job in a way. You know, it's like it's playing those songs that allows us to do this new thing. And instead of separating them and having them be two different entities, we're just calling it Eve 6.
Yeah.
You know?
Because why not? Why go through the trouble of starting a whole other side project and having to promote that when you can just be like, this is what we're doing now?
Yeah. And it's also a more interesting kind of art project to me to take this thing that is known as this thing and just piss on it.
Yeah.
In a way.
Or like,
and you know what I mean? That's putting it the wrong way.
Yeah.
But
it's not even pissing on it. It's just,
but in a way, destroy it. In a way, destroy it.
Yeah.
But
it's just evolution. That's literally all it is. You're just like, I was 17 when I wrote Heart in a Blender. Now, you know, I'm whatever.
Yeah.
And writing whatever the hell I want to. That feels good, but it's good music.
Thank
it's
you.
really good.
Yeah, we love it, and we're having a really good time doing this thing. Whenever I hear bands say that, it always begs the question, well, why weren't you always doing that? You know? And I haven't even been able to like adequately answer that question. I sort of could, but it would probably take forever, you know? Because when you're part of like a major label machine and stuff like that, and you're having commercial success, and there's other people are paying their bills because of your rock band and stuff, it's that incentives start to get skewed thing happens, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you have so much pressure on you from so many different areas, and you're young, and and like, how can you not think, well, I need it to sound like this song because that's how we got big. Like, we need it to sound like streamlined, you know, because I do think that that's realistic, you know, like, and familiarizing the public with kind of who you are and what you're about, and then maybe later on getting to like play around with different sounds. But it's hard to get the public to stay on board with you. Yeah. I mean, especially today. Yeah. It's like,
bands used to be allowed to like, you know, completely change and be virtually unrecognizable from record to record. You know, I mean, the Beatles did that. Yeah. Like you can't do that today and expect to have continued commercial success for the most part. I'm sure there are some exceptions, but for the most part, if you want to have continued commercial success, you need to kind of do the same thing over and over again.
Oh, totally. Or it's like people don't even care in general. They're just like on to the next thing, on to the next thing. Like there's no sense of like loyalty to artists anymore. Like I would say one of the artists that's really lucky to be able to kind of do whatever they want to do is like Harry Styles. You know, like I have just been like I love him, but I've been so shocked by everything, like how different everything is, but it's like he's got those locked in boy band like fans that will just follow him into whatever he does, but that's like such a rarity.
He's also extremely entertaining and
extremely
inventive.
Good looking.
So there's all those factors.
He's like the best. You know, but it's like it's hard nowadays. So I'm just all like I don't know, bands like always ask me questions and I'm like, I literally have no fucking clue, but I just always feel like as an artist, you just always have to follow, like you said, your North Star. Like whatever feels right and organic and good for you, like that's what you have to do.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, not compromising that, I think, is always the way to go. But there are situations in the life of a band where that's really difficult to do, or even seems impossible, you know? It would have been interesting to like go through those first 3 album cycles with like a mentor or something. Like,
having someone like a Steve Albini or something like that, like around. Well, so Don Gilmore, like, was he someone that?
He was.
Yeah.
He was, but he was a mentor, but he was also, coming from a set of influences and stuff that were completely disparate from ours. When I say ours, I mean me and John's, because our old drummer had different conceptions of kind of what was good and bad or whatever, had his own. John and I grew up with like punk rock first, and then that sort of led us into like Kill Rock Stars and K catalogs, you know, Sub Pop. We're going to Poobahs in Pasadena and like record shopping and stuff. That was us in high school.
Hell yeah.
We were also listening to the radio, you know, and it's like if you listen to the first couple Eve 6 records, well, the first one especially, I think, because the second one didn't sound like the radio when it came out, but that pop songwriting thing, that post-grunge radio thing definitely got in there. But it was also definitely like amplified by the guy producing the record, who was like sort of coming from that world too. But Don, I love Don. Yeah. And he was absolutely a mentor. We had never recorded before. And I had never sung harmonies before. He like taught us how to do all that stuff.
He taught you like mechanics and
Yeah.
like how to like clean things up to be like, this is a 3-minute
Yes.
hit song.
How to shave stuff out.
Yeah.
How to get. He was really good at taking a thing, knowing what could be better about it, and then getting that result out of you. He wasn't a songwriter, but he would say, you know, the second verse of this song lyrically, I don't care. Like, make me care.
Yeah.
And that criticism from him, criticism coming from certain people, you kind of just want to rise to it. And like,
Yeah.
with him, it never shut me down creatively. There are other people who would do that, and I would be like,
Yeah.
like, okay, nothing's happening now.
Totally.
You know, but
I totally feel that.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to get criticism, and when you're creative and then like it gets all in your head and you
Yeah.
just like feel like you don't know how to act anymore, you know?
yeah, completely.
So are you guys playing like some kind of summer festival with a bunch of other 90s bands? Are you guys doing something like that?
Oh, we're
felt
doing.
like I saw something.
We're doing some festival in Canada with Brian Wilson and
Oh,
like the Tea
what?
Party. Yeah, it's
Brian
the most
Wilson?
bizarre, most Canadian lineup I've ever seen in my life. I mean, not
so
that Brian
cool.
Wilson's Canadian, but it's in Canada and there's other Canadian artists on it and Eve Six. I know we're doing a show with 311 in their hometown, which is Tulsa.
Oh,
Is it
or,
Tulsa? Wait, where-
Omaha?
Omaha.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so random.
Yeah.
I love it. I like love the randomness of Eve. You know,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like you just do like weird one-off shit, and it's like so awesome. you
Yeah,
know?
that's sort of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we are releasing a full length. I forget. I think we're announcing it like really soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of logical next step to whatever our last cocaine rock thing was, you know?
Yeah.
It's sort of in that world. Kind of punk, but also kind of psychedelic, this one, like slowed down tempos in places and stuff.
I love it. So
Yeah.
will you guys tour that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think what we're going to do is like hit different parts of the country and do groups of shows of like four or five at a time rather than going out and doing, because we just did like a month and a half long run,
Okay.
which was cool and stuff, but we sort of feel like it would make more sense to just like Pacific Northwest for like a little under a week, come home for a couple weeks, do the Northeast, come home, like kind
Yeah.
of do it like that.
Break it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will definitely be doing shows to support it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend people read your advice columns. Input
Thank you.
Magazine, very, very helpful, very sweet, very like gentle advice for people that are asking, you know, about depression and smoking weed and all of these things. So I really love that you're doing that, and I hope that
Thank you.
continues.
It will.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, this has been an absolute dream for me. I'm like, it's just been so fun talking to you.
It's been awesome to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
You're
great.
really good at your job.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I appreciate it.
Max Collins, thank you guys for listening. And that's it. Thanks for watching. For more 7 Words Podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.